Hey guys, it's Ben here with the Half Court Heave on YouTube. I'm here with Colin. I'm here with Arjun. It's coming to you on YouTube, and if you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and give us 5 stars. Helps us grow and helps us. If we were to go to an agent of a player and say, "Hey, we're ranked this on Spotify podcasts," that would help us out a lot in getting you guys special guests to come on this show. And if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe so this video can grow and you can say that you were here first before we became the biggest show on YouTube. But before we get into the action, you see that dummy right there? See that hoodie he's wearing? And see how happy he is to have the hood over his head? Maybe you don't need a hoodie because it's super hot outside, but you should go get something. Link in bio. You can go get any sort of merchandise, any sort of clothing, maybe a pillow or a bag to go with that just says Half Court Heave, and some stuff that just says Shut Up Ben on it. And I'm pretty sure you or anybody who doesn't like to listen to me talk would love that. But let's get straight into the action. And our first question today is Aaron Rodgers, who's been on a trail of tears talking about how much he hates being on the Packers, and he says he's going to threaten to retire unless he gets traded. And my question is, which team needs Aaron Rodgers the most?
I'll start this one because I think that there are multiple teams that could use a quarterback like him. Of course, he's getting older, but he's still so good, and he's a top 2 quarterback in the league right now. So I'm gonna go with the Broncos on this one because they've got a great young receiving core with Judy, Sutton, and Patrick. So that's gonna help him out. They don't have a great O-line, but I mean their defense is aging. Their defense is still like really good in the league, and they could definitely make something happen. Like the Broncos have always been in this position where they've needed a quarterback. They've had struggles with that position ever since Peyton Manning left, and they're really not going to win anything with Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. So I think drafting a cornerback in the draft, that really signaled that they were trying to go for Rodgers. So I think he would be a good fit there.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's my team as well that I was going to go with. Like you said, that receiving core, and don't forget Noah Fant, tight end as well, that he'd have to throw to. And this past year, obviously, he connected with his tight end quite a bit, so that could be beneficial. But I think this defense is good enough. They've got a couple young stars, specifically like Bradley Chubb, first-time Pro Bowler last year, product out of our area from NC State. He's really great player and really good linebacker for them. Like you said, their O-line is not great, but as a whole, Rodgers propels this team pretty much from a borderline playoff team, not even with Drew Lock at the helm, to, I'd say, a guaranteed playoff team and maybe close to a Super Bowl contender.
I think when it comes to brutal need, I agree with you guys. Drew Lock is terrible, and when you talk about a team that's a quarterback away, the Broncos are like one of the very few teams that actually fits that without it being a stretch. Like half the teams in the league are apparently a quarterback away because they have a terrible quarterback. I agree with you guys, but I'm going to say something else. I think it's that Aaron Rodgers just generally, he asked for a trade and included the Raiders in the trade, which makes no sense. It just adds on to how embarrassing his hissy fit is. The Raiders, what improvement are you getting? Like that's their receiving core is so great. Their offensive line is so great. How is that going to help you in your career going to the Raiders instead of the Packers? You might as well just stay in Green Bay or request a trade to wherever that has a bottom 10 O-line like the Raiders do, and also can't draft anybody or get anybody.
Exactly. His problem in drafting, like, does he really want to go to the Raiders with people?
Yeah. The Raiders are a joke. So I don't know why he really put them there. I agree. The Broncos are like the true definition of a quarterback away. And sadly, they have like a bottom 3 quarterback in the league. Drew Lock is terrible. Maybe he could take a leap. Maybe not going to exclude it from possibility. But no, Teddy Bridgewater's not going to be enough for them. It comes down to how much I think they would give up. I would say my team is the Washington football team. I don't expect them to make a run for it. I think they're comfortable with Fitzpatrick and keeping together the defensive core that they have right now that's very young. I think they have a really bright future. But I think if one team were to need him the most to like really go up to the next level, I think it would be the Washington football team. But I think the Broncos probably have the best chance.
I think that he would set a tone. It's obviously Aaron Rodgers, but the Washington football team is still a young team. They're still developing. Rodgers only has a couple of years left. He's not he's not he's like 37 right now. He's getting older and he's getting older. And at some point he's gonna leave and they're gonna be at the point where they need the QB. They're gonna be at that point where they're ready to contend. And then Rodgers is gonna be too old. He's gonna be like, yeah, I don't think I can take you guys, even though they're gonna be ready. So I don't know if that would be a good fit for them.
I think, the football team, no matter how young they are, they've kind of built, if they had Rodgers, they'd be a contender, I think, for at least making the Super Bowl. I mean, the roster they had, they went, 8-8 last year? And then Ryan Fitzpatrick is enough to upgrade them. They had Haskins throwing the ball, Heineke for a playoff game, and Alex Smith. They had a really unimpressive quarterback room, like drastically unimpressive quarterback room, and still made the playoffs no matter how bad their division was. So I think Aaron Rodgers would also just be a good addition to help mentor other guys on the team. But also, I think they could contend for something. But I don't get the Aaron Rodgers his fit, and it came out of nowhere, and it's just so aggressive. Where he was content to be on the Packers for so long, and then out of nowhere in the offseason, he's like, you know what? I hate it here, so I'm going to cry about everything, just out of nowhere. But generally, the next thing I want to talk about is the NFL draft, and the first thing I want to talk about is the biggest winners and losers of the draft. Colin, who's your biggest winners and losers of the draft?
So my biggest individual winner as a player, the player who won, is Zach Wilson. Wilson's a guy out of BYU, wasn't really expected to go anywhere near this high at the beginning of the season. Had a great season at BYU, didn't play fantastic competition, but the Jets traded up to get Vera Tucker. They drafted wide receiver Elijah Moore, running back Michael Carter, surrounded him with talent. Vera Tucker on the O-line, gave him as good of a situation as he could be going into the Jets. Do you really want to go to the Jets as a player? No. But they put him in a better situation than we probably expected him to be in going into the draft. So I think he wins as an individual player. As a team, the Bears win. They get their quarterback, which has been the knock on them for past years, not getting Mahomes, not getting Watson, and drafting Mitchell Trubisky, trading for Nick Foles. None of that's worked out. So they get their quarterback and to throw to Allen Robinson, and they've got David Montgomery still. They've got Tyreek Cohen coming back. They've got a solid defense. I think Matt Nagy's a good coach. And that's an organization that still made the playoffs last year, even through everything. So I think the Bears have a bright future now, where going into the draft, it was very uncertain.
Yeah, generally, I think winners. I'm going to keep winners brief because who loves to talk about winners? The losers are so much more to nag on. Winners are NFC East QBs and then the Cowboys defense. The Eagles got Devontae Smith. They traded up for him. The football team got a nice OT, and they got De'Ami Brown in the second day, and then the Giants got Tony, who was hated on a little bit by Giants fans for picking him. I think he's actually a really solid pick. He only had 3 drops and like 180 targets. I think, and they also traded back from the Eagles and got more value. So I think those 3 teams in the NFC East had a great draft, and then the Cowboys, they came into the draft needing to fix the defense, and they absolutely did so. And they also got Dak Prescott locked up, so they got Micah Parsons. I think if they had gotten Surtain, it would have been better, but I generally like what they did with their defense. And then I like the Chargers. They got Asante Samuel, Rashawn Slater. They really helped out Herbert because their O-line was terrible last year. And I'm a Duke football fan, so Chris Rumpf in the 4th round, I think that's a steal. The Browns, they got Jock, they got Greg Newsome, and they got D. Lyman. I think they had a really good draft. They're probably the most complete team in football, if I were to say so. I think they're going to be a really sneaky team next year, especially when they get Odell Beckham back. And then the losers of the draft. This is my favorite part. I love talking about losers. That's why I have you two on here. So you got the Texans. Their first pick was in the 3rd round because they were set up so horribly. And they picked Sam Mills in the 3rd round. They had to pick a quarterback because Deshaun Watson. That was a horrible pick. And you can't really blame him. Their GM didn't have a great situation to prepare with. And then the Jaguars, I'm going to say the Jaguars were actually a pretty big loser of this draft since they drafted Travis from Clemson, the running back. I'm not even trying to say his last name. But they have a good running back core. They have James Robinson, who had a great year last year, undrafted, and boom, you're just going to draft a running back from Clemson because Trevor likes him. I don't get that. That's not very smart to me. And then the Saints, they reached on Ian Book. They didn't address their need of a cornerback until round 3, and they didn't replace Emmanuel Sanders. I think they're a big loser as well.
I think that for the most part, I agree with you guys. I think that the one winner is I definitely think the Bears are a winner because they got Justin Fields, and I'm really high on Justin Fields' ability to. I think he's going to have a great career in the NFL. I think that a lot of times when you trade up to get that pick, you often like look back. Like sometimes it doesn't go well, sometimes it doesn't. And this time they gave up a good amount, but I think that it was well worth it getting a guy like Fields. And I think another winner with the Dolphins because Tua especially. Okay, first of all, they did the right move. They didn't try to replace Tua. They went with him. They didn't try to trade up or try to get another quarterback. They got Jalen Waddle, great wide receiver. He's going to fit really well with Tua. And I think that the losers, the two teams I have, and one's the Seahawks. Now the Seahawks, they got a wide receiver. They got a wide receiver. Now the issue is that they already have enough offensive weapons. They have Metcalf. They have Lockett. They have Chris Carson. So Wilson's never said they want to secure Wilson. He's never said that he's unhappy with the wide receiver, with the offensive weapon situation. He's unhappy with the O-line. He's unhappy with the defense. They didn't really do that. And the Cardinals already have they got Zaven Collins, who's an edge rusher, and that's the one position they really didn't need. They have Watt, and then they have what's his name, Chandler Jones, but they got the one thing that they really didn't need. They could have focused on the secondary. They could have gotten O-line. They just really didn't. They picked the one thing they didn't need.
Yeah, I think you guys both said the Bears is a winner, and I kind of disagree. I love that they got a quarterback. Yet it was Matt Nagy who made this move. Do we really trust Matt Nagy with drafting quarterbacks? But mainly, I think they traded away their first round pick next year to get this pick. And I get it. It was Justin Fields. He was supposed to go maybe even top 3, and he fell to 11. But their schedule is really hard next year, and they're probably going to start out the year starting Andy Dalton unless Justin Fields makes some huge jump. But I mean, their schedule is really hard. Their pick's going to be pretty high. So if they end up with a pretty high pick, and then Justin Fields maybe starts a couple games next season, maybe even doesn't. Allen Robinson's going to be completely unrestricted. He's going to be a free agent. He might walk. I mean, Andy Dalton's not going to impress him that much. And then if their pick's really high and they lose out on that, that's going to be a really big L of a move unless Justin Fields turns into a star, which we don't really know if he will be yet. But I think generally I like the move, but it's really risky, and we're going to have to see how that pans out. But the next thing I want to talk about is Trey Lance. That was the biggest surprise of the draft to me, was that Trey Lance was picked at 3. I was thinking it was either going to be Mac Jones or Justin Fields. But my question to you was Trey Lance the right pick with the 3rd pick in the draft, Colin?
I think yes. I would have gone with Fields, but being in the 49ers situation, Lance is the right pick. He can still play back. He can be a backup right now. He doesn't have to start day one. He can learn right now and kind of learn the system, learn the playbook, everything, and come in maybe mid-season, maybe later on in the season. But I think that his talent, his upside was too much to pass up. You've got a great coach in Kyle Shanahan who can really guide him. And I think Fields maybe has more raw talent. And he has proven more, I think, at Ohio State. But I think Trey Lance is a prospect that it really made sense to go to San Francisco.
Okay, I think it was the right pick. I didn't really think about before the draft. I didn't think about that being the right pick because I didn't think about that being the pick. I thought Trey Lance was going to slip, but apparently he didn't. Kyle Shanahan saw something in him, and that's all I need to know. But I mean, his biggest flaw was inaccuracy. I think that of the quarterbacks remaining on the board, that's the easiest fix by a coach. And when you have Kyle Shanahan as a coach, an easy fix is a fix that's already done. I mean, like past quarterbacks that have had inaccuracy problems were like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Before them, inaccuracy was scary from a quarterback. But like Fields holds on to the ball for too long. Like you look at Daniel Jones, that problem still hasn't been fixed. No matter what they've tried to do, he still holds on for the ball for too long and causes a lot of turnovers. And then Mac Jones is just astonishingly unathletic, and he doesn't have any elite traits like the other two quarterbacks do. And I think that Trey Lance, he really opens up Kyle Shanahan's offense to a new level that no quarterback has been able to before with how mobile he is. I think it really allows Kyle Shanahan to up himself as a coach and make his offense even better than it ever has been because everything that Trey Lance can do with his upside. I think if he uses his potential correctly and uses Trey Lance correctly, then we could see a dynasty happening.
Yeah, I think that Trey Lance was it was a solid pick. You didn't really go. At least you didn't draft Mac Jones. That should be the main thing. At least you didn't draft Mac Jones. He's just not someone you wanted on your team. I think that I would have rather had Fields on that team. I would have said they're both relatively at the same level, but I think Fields is a better QB, and I think that both of them have fixable problems, like you said. Fields, he took some tests where it showed that he had the best ability to learn and improve among any other NFL player. It was some among football, any football player, Justin Fields' ability to learn and adapt is better than any other. So I think that his ability to if you're put in a Shanahan system, he could definitely be. I think he could definitely be better than Trey Lance, even though he's got an arm. He has problems with reading the field that can easily be fixed.
Well, that's just incorrect because a lot of GMs and coaches were worried about Fields because he wasn't willing to adapt and he wasn't willing to learn and change the way he played the game. So I really don't think that would have worked at all.
I think that it would because it's the NFL. You have to adapt. Or you're gonna get out. You have to adapt, or you're gonna be hit out of the league. And I think any NFL prospect understands that. Anybody will understand if he's put in the 49ers. When he's put with a coach like that, he's definitely.
Fields' problems are much less fixable than Lance's, and Lance has probably, I think, in my opinion, more upside than Fields does because you put him in with Shanahan. Also, Trey Lance has never had elite level coaching or near the coaching level that any of the Mac Jones or Justin Fields of the world have had. Like you have the Alabama and Ohio State systems with Nick Saban. You have great coaches, and he's been at D2 North Dakota State. I can't remember the exact name. But he's never had elite level coaching, and now he's getting Kyle Shanahan. So, and you also have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been in a Super Bowl. He's been under Tom Brady. He's been with Bill Belichick. There's a lot for this kid to learn, and the fact that he's never had elite level coaching, and he's still, for all the inaccuracy problems he had last season, in his entire college career in 2 years, he only had 6 turnover-worthy plays and 1 interception in his entire career at NDSU. So I think once he gets into elite coaching, he's going to be the best quarterback of anyone remaining. But that actually leads me on to the next thing we want to talk about, which is which 2021 quarterback besides Trevor Lawrence will be the best out of this draft class? Arjun?
I think that I'm going to stick with what I said. I think that Fields, besides Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to go Justin Fields in this one because I think that his ability right now, he's already a proven scrambler. Everybody can know that he can move. He's so mobile with the ball, and he's also got a terrific arm. He's got terrific throw power. I think that with his ability to learn and improve, and just what we've seen in college, just in general, we've always seen Justin Fields be right there, right behind Trevor Lawrence for his entire career. He's always been right there. Some people have for a period of time, he was ahead of Trevor Lawrence. So I think that out of anybody, Zach Wilson, even though Zach Wilson, like you said earlier, they got new players, he's still going to be under the Jets management. That is not going to be good for his career at all. If Zach Wilson could have a terrific career, but I'm going to take Justin Fields in this one.
Justin Fields is not going to be the best quarterback in this draft. I think of players who are least likely to be, I think of the first-round quarterbacks, that is, I think Zach Wilson has the worst chance to be the best quarterback in this draft besides Trevor Lawrence of being number one. I think being put into the Jet system, Colin mentioned earlier, they got better weapons for him. They got a better O-line, kinda, but it's still the Jets' offensive system. They're not brewing out great quarterbacks. And you look at this sort of unathletic, really small white guy who had he had one good year of college, and he's the second overall pick, and he also didn't play any great level of competition. Remind you of Sam Darnold, kind of. Sam Darnold also had a lot more upside than Zach Wilson did coming out of college. He was supposed to be really good. But then I get it. There's no more Adam Gase. And the weapons, the offensive line, they've gotten better. But Zach Wilson is still being put into a horrible system, and I don't even think he's going to be better than Lance or Fields no matter what the system. I think it's going to be Trey Lance. As I mentioned before, elite coaching, the best, I mean, besides Bill Belichick, the best coaching of any quarterback taken in the first round. And I mean, Mac Jones, he has Bill Belichick, but how much can Mac Jones really do? He's not elite at anything, unlike these other quarterbacks. I think that with his weapons, with his defense, and with the coach and mentors that he has, and also with the upside that he was going to bring to a team coming out of college, that Trey Lance will easily be the best quarterback in this draft besides Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I have to agree with you about Trey Lance. I think Zach Wilson, I don't like him that much as a prospect, but when I look back at it, I didn't like Josh Allen that much as a prospect. Going to the Bills wasn't great because, the Bills hadn't done anything the last 20 years. Different situation, but still, not ideal situations, overcame it. But I don't think Zach Wilson will rise to that level. There's not anything convincing about him that tells me he could be a good quarterback. Trey Lance has pretty much everything going for him. Mac Jones is in another good situation. I don't think Mac Jones is very good. That's the problem. He's unathletic. He has a high football IQ apparently. But obviously Belichick does as well. But what is that going to do when your best wide receiver is Jacoby Myers? Don't get me wrong. I like Jacoby Myers. He should not be your best wide receiver. He's got a couple of tight ends to throw to, but he wasn't really throwing to the tight end very much at Alabama. So that's going to be new for him. I just don't see Mac Jones succeeding that much. I think he'll become a starting quarterback probably fairly quickly, but I don't think he'll succeed as much as Trey Lance will in his long-term career.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Jones, he's an unathletic white guy who is just not very built. So, of course, the Tom Brady comparison is there, but not football-wise. I don't get where that comparison comes from. It's just Patriots fans trying to cope with the fact that they'll never have another one like him. But the next thing we want to talk about is moving on to basketball, and that is, does LeBron need to be 100% for the Lakers to win a title this year, Arjun?
Yes, I think that you need LeBron to. With the way it's looking right now, I mean, obviously, it doesn't a lot of Lakers fans will say that no, they've got it in the bag. It's all right. When the playoff time comes around, they're going to be all right. But they're in a terrible situation right now because they've lost the last 6 games out of 7, and right now they're very close to making the play-in. They're the 7th seed, and if they get into the play-in, they have to face Curry, and LeBron does not want to face it. So if they want any chance to move,
What?
If to do anything,
LeBron doesn't want to face Eric Paschal, Curry, and Drummond.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a scare. It's still a scare regardless of that team. It's still Stephen Curry. It's still a scare. So I think that obviously it's not as much as what the past Warriors would be, but I think that they obviously just don't have right now they're not playing well at all. AD is looking really rusty, and I mean I think he has the worst plus-minus ratio right now, but LeBron needs to be 100% for them to make a run.
Okay, before I talk about what I actually asked you, no one's scared to play the Warriors. Come on. Literally nobody is scared to play this Warriors.
I mean, anytime you have a guy that's...
They don't even have Oubre.
Anytime you have a guy like Curry, that's going to be...
No, Curry has dropped 50
points
multiple times this season.
You have a guy like Curry, and who? And
it doesn't no, I get that it's not as big of a scare as it used to be, but it's still Stephen Curry. It's still a guy who's
Stephen Curry.
It's a play-in tournament, so it's not going to be a prolonged tournament. And with the Lakers are playing right now, I mean, yeah, it's not looking good.
I'd rather face Memphis, but I'm not scared of the Warriors if I'm LeBron. If you really think LeBron is scared of the Warriors, then what do you really think of LeBron?
God,
he's not scared.
No, I don't want to make it sound like that, but I'm he's not scared of the Warriors as a team, but just in general, Steph Curry is prone to doing stuff. He's such a dangerous weapon. You guys know that. You know what he's capable of. You know what he can do. The Warriors aren't a threat to make it deep into the playoffs. Are they a threat to make an upset?
Ever. They're not at all a threat to beat the Lakers. No chance. I wouldn't even.
But we have to play in tournament. There's not a ton of games. So say they get a game or two, like that's, you know, it's a bit different than if they were playing in a playoff series.
Yeah, all right. Back to the main question. Just back to the main question of it. LeBron said that he will not be 100% for the rest of his career. I don't believe him. And no matter what he says, no matter what happens, this is LeBron James. On here, I've doubted him. On everywhere, people everywhere have doubted him every single year. Like 10 years ago, it was supposed to be, okay, only 3 more years and LeBron will decline. It's never going to happen. Like, it might happen 2 or 3 years from now. It's not going to happen. And even if he's at 90%, he's still better than 99% of the guys in the league. Maybe he could fit like a couple guys in front of him, but this is LeBron James. This is number one. We're not going to believe if he says he doesn't feel like he's 100%. He might just be saying that, and maybe even if he believes it, I don't believe him. Because this is LeBron James. I've doubted him too many times. This team's going to beat him. This team's going to beat him. Harden's on fire, so this team's going to beat him. It's never going to happen. You're never going to take down LeBron James. It's just not going to happen. But with that being said, does he need to be 100%? If the Nets are 100%, I would say he needs to be 100%. But if the Nets are without a player for like multiple games, I got the Lakers in however many games that player's out, plus 1 or 2 wins. But to fully beat the healthy Nets, I would say he needs to be 100% LeBron James. And with that to happen, I 100% think that will happen because I'm done doubting LeBron James in my life.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's good enough and he's wins enough. Like LeBron James at 85% gives you an even playing field with the rest of the league. That's how good he is. Like you put him at 100% on this Lakers team, and then we saw what happened last year. It wasn't a contest in any playoff series. And I think at this point, there's the Nets, obviously, the Bucks are better, the Sixers are better in the East. So those teams in the East. In the West, you've got the Suns and the Jazz at the top. But I'll be honest with you, the Lakers are going to win each of those series in 6, maybe 5. I mean, those are good teams. But LeBron, if he is at 100%, that's nothing. But if the Nets are fully healthy, I completely agree with you. He needs to be 100%, play like he did in 2018 on the Cavs, pretty much to beat the Nets.
Yeah, God, I mean, to outscore those people, and it's not like they're not a team that has like 3 elite level defenders that are perfectly set up to guard those 3 guys. You're not going to outscore those guys 4 times in a series unless you're a fully healthy LeBron James, and that's something I'll stand for. But generally, going back to the LeBron 100% thing, I'm not going to believe him, but I'm going to wait and see. Like, obviously, I won't believe LeBron falling off until I see it. But I mean, even him at 90 or 80%, he's losing that in like athleticism and jump off the foot, like everything about just the extras of LeBron James. He'll still have his playmaking, he'll still have his shooting, he'll still have everything he knows about the game. So I think even if he's not at 100%, I see them going to the finals, even over the Clippers. But let's move on and talk about the Bucks, who went 2-0 against the Nets in the span of a week, I believe, or I think it was less than a week, but it was in the span of a week. So the Bucks, and I mean, in each game, it's been close going down to the wire, and Giannis has shut down KD. Drew has shut down Kyrie Irving. My question is, are the Bucks the best match for the Nets in the playoffs, Arjun?
I think matchup-wise, definitely. The Bucks perfectly match up with this Nets team because the Bucks, first of all, they're an elite defense. The Nets are an elite offense. These are 2 elite forces going at each other. And as good as the 76ers are on defense, in terms of just player-to-player matchups, the Bucks have it better than the Sixers. I think that, first of all, Holiday guarding Kyrie. Then you've got Middleton guarding Giannis. Middleton guarding Harden, which isn't going to do much, but Middleton's still a good defender. And then you've got Giannis guarding KD. Those are the 3 main matchups. There is no other big matchup on either team that needs to be. Those are 3 positions where they're all going to go at it, and they're perfectly. This Bucks team, this defense is perfectly tailored for this Nets offense. And if we looked at Budenholzer in the past, what's really made him collapse is the offense. His offensive changes to offensive game plan they've been lackluster during the playoffs. That's why he's failed. That's why his defense has always been good. That's why these teams have succeeded in the regular season. But when it comes down to the Nets don't have a great defense. Their defense isn't gonna shake they're not gonna shake the Bucks like the Heat did. So I think that this is gonna be really well matched.
No, Mike Budenholzer will always be the downfall of the Milwaukee Bucks. As long as he's the head coach of that team, he will be the downfall of the Milwaukee Bucks. And that's why they're not the best fit. Theoretically, I mean, if you have a good coach on that team who can adjust his team, I mean, you have Drew Holiday guarding Kyrie, you have Middleton guarding Harden, you have Giannis, who's the first person I've ever seen block Kevin Durant in a game of basketball ever. Like, those three guys paired up against those three guys, with the fact that with Giannis, there's nobody on that team that can stop Giannis. That it's like you'd think that's the perfect match. There's no way that the Bucks wouldn't be the best team to play that team. But then you look at Mike Budenholzer. Every year, all regular season, they have the best offense in the league. And it's because they have the number one in pace in the league. They're such a fast team. And in the playoffs, everything slows down. And then Mike Budenholzer doesn't change anything. When there's a player going off and Mike Budenholzer doesn't want Giannis, the defensive player of the year, guarding him, he doesn't guard him because Giannis has to listen to his coach because Giannis is too much of a nice guy. But when you have a guy like Mike Budenholzer, those problems are never going to change because he's never going to change what he thinks is right. This team will never be the best match for anybody in the playoffs as long as Mike Budenholzer is still their head coach.
I think that Budenholzer is not great at adjustments, obviously, but I don't think he's going to be the complete downfall of the Bucks. But I think the Bucks are the best matchup. My biggest problem is like in their most recent game, the Bucks won by 6. Durant had 32, 9, and 6 with Giannis guarding him, and Kyrie had 38, 3, and 5 with Drew Holiday guarding him. So the Bucks did not shut them down in any way, shape, or form. They won, but that's it. So you put Harden in that mix and make Middleton guard him, I'm worried about it. However, I think that if you slow them down on defense, if you're the Bucks, you slow them down on defense, the Nets are not slowing you down on defense. So you just have to worry about.
No, you're never going to slow the Nets down on offense, though. That's never going to happen. Even in this regular season game, even these regular season games where it's felt like a playoff game, Giannis definitely treated it like a playoff game. Giannis, as much as he shut down KD in the fourth quarter, I mean, KD still had, 42 points? And they didn't
I get that, but I don't think the Sixers work as a better matchup because you look at Embiid last year against the Celtics in the first round. He would drop 40 a game and they'd still lose by 10 because he can't. He's a great defender, but he doesn't match up with anyone really well on the Nets. I guess you'd put him on KD,
they didn't have Ben. Okay, they didn't have.
No, but it is a fair point because Embiid isn't guarding on the perimeter. That's the thing.
Ben Simmons. They did not have Ben Simmons last year in the playoffs. That's a big thing. As much overrated player that he actually is, they didn't have this year's Tobias Harris. He took an unbelievable jump this year. That's really not talked about enough. He took a huge jump. They have a much better team. They had no shooting. They had Al Horford and Josh Richardson on that team, and then they dumped off those guys. They got Seth Curry. They got Dwight Howard. They got a more all-around team. Shake Milton took a big step, and then Embiid took the leap to an MVP caliber player. So this is a completely different team than last year, especially come playoff time. But I would say the Sixers are the best chance in the East to take them down because of Mike Budenholzer, unless Giannis decides to say, hey, fuck him. I'm not going to listen to Mike Budenholzer. I'm going to guard whoever I want. I'm going to play offense the way I want to play offense, and that's how I'm going to dominate this series. But I would say there's really no good matchup for the Nets. Unless the Bucks got a better coach that's better at making adjustments, then I would say they are a legitimately good matchup for this Nets team. But otherwise, there is not a single good matchup against the Nets this year because you're not going to outscore this team unless if you're looking in the West and you say, okay, LeBron James and AD or LeBron James and AD, that's the best chance we got. You're not going to outscore these guys in a 7-game series. It's not going to happen. You're not going to do that 4 times. But I think the best matchup right now will be the Sixers because they're more complete. Like they can adjust in the playoffs. They can slow their offense down. They have a good coach in Doc Rivers. As much of a sketchy playoff coach he is, he's a lot better than Mike Budenholzer. So I think they're the best match for the Nets right now in the East. Lakers, of course, best overall. But the next thing I want to talk about is Julius Randle. And that question that I have for you is Julius Randle a top 3 power forward in the league right now?
Colin, why don't you start us off?
Okay, I think he would be tied for third. That is, if we're counting Kevin Durant as a small forward. I think obviously you've got Giannis at 1, AD at 2, and then it's kind of between Randle and Zion. And I think I'll make the case for both here because I think there is a case for both that's fair. You've got Zion who's shooting 60%, over 60% from the field, 7 rebounds, over 3.5 assists. He's been a great individual player this year. He's taken a huge leap again. And he's cemented himself really at the top of that power forwards list. But Randle, on the other hand, is about 24 points per game, shooting 46%, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists, has propelled this Knicks team that nobody expected to do anything to near the top of the East. And when you look at the supporting cast of the Knicks and the Pelicans, Zion has the better supporting cast, I think. Because Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Steven Adams is not great, but he's probably better than Nerlens Noel. And so I get that Randle has Rose and RJ, but I would take the Pelicans supporting cast. But look which team is in a far better position, and it's the Knicks. The Pelicans aren't even in the play-in, which honestly is unacceptable to me. But I really think that Randle has propelled this team, taken a great leadership role, and taken this jump in his 7th season like we really have never seen before. So right now, I would give Randle the nudge for this season. Do I think he's better than Zion? No way. But this season, Randle has been the number 3 power forward.
I mean, this season he's been the number 2 power forward. He's been better than Anthony Davis, no doubt.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been number 2 this season. I would say he's having a better season than Zion because I don't like the team argument. Because when you look at overall talent, I think RJ is really underrated. I think the Knicks have less notable talent that people know. Like Lonzo Ball, big reality TV guy, and he's a great passer. Brandon Ingram, big scorer, all-star. That's great. Steven Adams used to be good. He's loved by fans. Eric Bledsoe used to be good. Like this team is really, and also like absolutely no depth at all. And the Knicks have RJ, they have Quickly, they have Rose, they have Bullock's been playing out of his mind. I mean, Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, they have a decent center core that I would say is better than the Pelicans center core because Steven Adams took a big drop off. But generally, the biggest thing is the coach. I think if you swap Stan Van Gundy and Tom Thibodeau right now, the records would basically I think the Pelicans would be higher up in the West, and the Knicks wouldn't be even near the play-in because Tom Thibodeau has taken such a big leap for this Knicks team with how well he coached them. I think it's not talked about as much what he's doing compared to what Randle's doing because Randle took a great jump, but it's really Tom Thibodeau is what made him make that jump because of how great of a coach he is. So I think if you swap these coaches, the records would be different. And also the Pelicans really have a terrible all-around team, and they're in a harder conference. So when you talk about team record, I don't like that. I think overall Zion's a better player because when it comes to scoring, of course, Randle can do it for more all around, but I mean, Zion's an absolute dominator when it comes to being inside of the paint. I mean, besides Giannis, maybe there's nobody that scores inside like Giannis, like Zion does. And I think Randle's playmaking is a wee bit overrated because he's had to be a playmaker, he's had to be a passer this season because there's not really much passing on that Knicks team right now. If you put Zion there, I think his assist numbers would be up. And I think it's a pretty even battle, but I would say that Randle is either 3rd or 4th overall in power forwards in the NBA.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think that I'd put him at 2. I would put him over Zion. I think it's very close, but in my opinion, I think Randle has surpassed Zion for this season. Obviously, Zion's in his 2nd season, so he's still got so much room to grow. But I think that Randle has shown that he's a better shooter. He's a passing wise, the fact that he's been getting those assists and he's been put in that position, he's a power forward, and he's been getting all those assists, shows how good he is. I mean, it shows how versatile. They put him in a position where basically says, Thibodeau said, you need to be the playmaker. And the fact that he did it, the fact that he's had no like prior experience of being a playmaker and now he's doing it so well, it really shows how good he is at that spot. I think that he's also averages more rebounds, but if you look at overall scoring wise, Randle has to create his own shots. There's no one that really sets him up, no one who creates that shot for him. He's basically the one who makes all those shots. I mean, if you look at Zion, 70% of his shots are from within 3 feet and 55% of his shots are assisted. We all know, like, Lonzo literally creates his shots. There have been so many times in the game where Lonzo just makes it look effortless, where he puts a perfectly placed pass and gives Zion just an easy dunk, gives him an easy layup. And then versus Randle, who has like his 16% of his shots are from within 3 feet and 34% are assisted. So if you're talking about just pure skill as a scorer, I would take Randle over him.
I mean, he's a more skilled all-around scorer, but I mean, Zion, there's nothing teams can do because he's just so dominant in the paint. It doesn't matter when he's assisted. When he's not assisted, he's just going straight at you. And I mean, he has a great handle now. I think he has a better handle than Randle. If you really watch the games, how he's moving around out there with a big truck of a body, he's crossing up people. I mean, not legitimately crossing up people, but when it comes to the paint, it's not skilled scorer. Obviously, if it's like the more versatile, the more skilled scorer, it goes to Randle because he can do it anywhere from the half court. He could really score for you. And I mean, Zion's developing that, but absolutely no one can stop Zion in the paint. And even when he misses, he gets his board. I think it's like 75% of his shots are either scored or grabbed back down from a rebound. He's absolutely ridiculous in the paint, but I do think it's really neck and neck. And if you want to go off team performance, sure, I have a bone to pick with that. If you want to go off playmaking or versatile scoring, sure. But I really do think it's an even match. But Zion's pure dominance when playing the game of basketball, I would have to give it to him.
Yeah, and I have to give Tom Thibodeau the credit as well because, I mean, what he's done with this team, and I think the best coaches run their offense somewhat through a power forward. Look at Draymond Green with the Warriors a couple years back, the way that was. So I think Julius Randle being put in that role this year, the way he adapted, great coaching and player tandem right there.
I mean, having a power forward that can pass is so underrated. I think we've talked about this before.
Well, you space the floor so more. You draw those defenders in, and they can pass out. You can set screens along the outside rather than under and on the inside in the paint.
It's not
really
anticipated. When a power forward can elevate his teammates as much as Randle can, it's just not anticipated. People really don't plan against it that much, and it also just helps out your offense so much. It makes you flow so much better. But the next thing I want to talk about is back to LeBron James, and that is, after his 100% comments, do you still think LeBron James is the best player in the NBA? I'll start this off. It's a wait and see thing for me because obviously I don't believe LeBron James when he says he's not going to be 100% ever again. I think he'll fully recover. I think he'll still be able to get up there no matter how old he is. But if he really is not 100%, if he's 90% or below, or maybe even you could say like 93%, then I would have to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think recently, not the start of the season, but more recently, his three-point shot has taken a huge leap. We saw against both games against the Nets, he shot above 50% from three and made like 4 of them, I think. And he's become such a versatile scorer. He can do it like anywhere from the three-point line in, and he's just so dominant when he does it, especially the further he goes towards the bucket. I mean, he's the best defender in the NBA, I would say, and he's been leading his team to a top seed. No matter how bad of a playoff or not, how mediocre for his regular season performance he's played in the playoffs, I think he's been great. But I think if LeBron is 90%, he's at 90%, and Giannis proves that he is a playoff player. He finally plays above or at his regular season level in the playoffs. Then I will say he's better than LeBron James, but I'm not going to believe it yet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I refuse to doubt LeBron. I just won't do it. I think after he came back from down 3-1 against the Warriors, I just refused to doubt him since then. And I think he can come back from this injury. I get that it won't be easy. I get that he may not have the same athleticism, but at this stage in his career, it's less about his athleticism and it's more about how well he understands the game, how well he plays the game, his passing, the way he elevates the team and the players around him. And I think he'll still be able to do that up to the end of his career, no matter what happens really with his athleticism. So I refuse to think that he won't be the best player unless Giannis wins the championship this year and LeBron is out in the first or second round. That's the only way, in my opinion, Giannis overtakes him at this point this season.
Yeah, I think if Giannis proves himself to be, if he finally puts down a playoff performance where he plays like in his regular season self or better, and he truly dominates the playoffs like he does the regular season, then I would say you make that case. And then if LeBron's at 90%, then I would say it's a decent case, and I would say I would probably take Giannis at that point. But all of that would have to happen, and we haven't seen any of that happen before. But Arjun, what's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that here's my thing. I think that LeBron is always going to be the best player in the playoffs whenever he's always shown it. He's always been that guy in the playoffs. But my take is that ever since last year, it's always been Giannis. I've always had Giannis at that top spot. LeBron has always been second. Just as like a player, I think Giannis has always been like, more dominant in the NBA. I've always like LeBron. The fact that he's there, the fact that he's at the second spot, it's super impressive to me. But I've always had Giannis at the top spot.
Stop. I'm sorry, just stop. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. I don't even know what to say to that. I didn't prepare for anybody to say that.
Okay, you got Giannis, a guy who got bounced by Duncan Robinson in the playoffs last year.
No, but like not in the playoffs, but like as just a player, just skill wise, who's been the best
skill wise? LeBron's
the skilled player in the NBA. The best player is not about skill. The best player is about what you do with your team, how you play in the games. It's not about, oh, look at me, I can dunk and drop 30 points and then lose in the second round of the playoffs. It's LeBron and his greatness. He's been to the finals all but the year that he was injured with the Lakers. Like the past 10 or 11 finals, whatever.
But guys, I'm talking about the regular season. During the regular season,
no, he's no.
You can't just evaluate a player based on the regular season.
Yeah, and when you're talking about pure skill, Giannis is not near, like not even touching the surface of LeBron James' skill level. It's a couple tiers off because Giannis gets a lot of his dominance from the fact that he's a big old guy and he dominates in the paint. LeBron is as athletic and as much of an X-Man as he actually is. He's super skilled. He's probably, you could say he's the most skilled player in NBA history because he's been in contention for the Defensive Player of the Year award. He's been on an all-NBA defensive team. He's been the assist leader. He's arguably, besides Magic, you could say he's the best passer of all time.
No, but like at the moment, he's not the same defensive presence that he used to be. He's not that good at defense anymore. He's still a good defender, but he's not nowhere compared to a guy like Giannis.
Yeah, of course he's not the best defender in the NBA, but he's a great defender still to this day when he actually needs to crack down and play that caliber of defense. Of course, like Kawhi Leonard,
he hasn't really gotten that.
Kawhi Leonard does not play. Arjun. Kawhi Leonard does not play to his defensive ability every single game ever since he left San Antonio because he has to take the offensive firepower. He has to use that ever since he went to Toronto and now he's in LA. His defense stepped down a bit statistically, and like when he guards a guy, he guards him a little worse than he did in San Antonio because he has to play a lot more offense. He has to carry a lot more of the offensive load. That's the case with LeBron James, but when LeBron James really needs to crack down and guard somebody, there's not very many guys better than him at doing so.
I mean, if you compare that to Zion, not Zion. If you compare that to a guy like Giannis can do it better than anybody in the league, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, that's true.
His ability is that's why. As a player, as dominance, the best player in the NBA has always been for since last year. It has been Giannis for me. LeBron has always been in that second spot because he's been coasting the regular season and then he hits you hard in the playoffs. That's why.
Giannis?
No, LeBron.
Oof. All right. No. Giannis.
I mean, how is that not true, though? LeBron coasts. He plays well in the regular season, but he doesn't go really hard. And then when it comes to playoff time, he plays really well. Yeah,
LeBron wasn't even going 1,000% to start off this season, and he was leading the MVP race with guys like Embiid and Jokic putting up unheard center numbers. Until he got injured, he had played every single game this season. He had been playing at the number one in the MVP race level. he had been averaging a near triple-double, and now, just because he's injured for a little bit, Giannis is better ever since last year. That's ridiculous. Get out of here. He's never, ever, unless LeBron...
No, I mean, he's been the most dominant player. Giannis has been the most dominant player in the NBA since last year. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Arjun, Giannis, okay, let me tell you this. In March, when after Giannis won his 2 MVPs, in March, LeBron drafted him for his All-Star team. Giannis was asked about that, and Giannis said, LeBron is still the best player in this league. I am not on the same level as him.
But that's the thing, though. That's his opinion.
Player doesn't say it.
The way I see it, I think.
Do you know what LeBron says about himself? He says, "I am the best."
What would MJ say?
That's just confidence.
What would MJ say in his prime if somebody said, "Hey, is Kobe better than you now?" No matter.
Oh yeah, he's the best. No.
It's never going to happen because he was the best. Because he was number one. It's never going to happen from a number one guy. And I know Giannis has a great mentality. He works hard. He improves every year. But until LeBron genuinely falls off, he's never going to be worse than Giannis or worse than anybody in the league. But the last thing we want to talk about today is who deserves the Defensive Player of the Year award, Colin.
I would have to say it's Ben Simmons. I think the difference when he's on the court versus when he's off the court is huge. I think we saw that in last year's playoffs against the Celtics. Embiid would drop 40 points and the Celtics would still win by 10 because the presence of Simmons there, he can guard any position, anyone. And the argument of Rudy Gobert, Rudy can guard positions, but he's not really. You're much better off putting him guarding a center or guarding a power forward. Simmons dropped 42 on Rudy Gobert. In a game earlier that year, Joel Embiid dropped 40 on Gobert. Gobert is not good at defending elite players, whereas Simmons, as I hate to say it, can lock down guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown on the Celtics whenever they play them quite frequently. He's done well against certain players on the Sixers. He can defend any position you ask him to. And you've got Embiid who obviously defends the center, but anything from point guard to power forward, Simmons has it and he defends it very well.
Okay, the 1 through 5 argument or the 1 through 4 argument is always something that doesn't really catch my eye as a good argument for who's the better defensive player because then a center would never be a better defender than a guard or a forward, and that's not true. I mean, Rudy Gobert obviously besides Bam Adebayo. There's no good on-ball defender that's a center in the NBA. You just don't find that, and you've never found that besides like Hakeem Olajuwon because you can't find a guy who's that big and that like much of a paint presence who can guard on-ball all around the floor besides Bam Adebayo. And I mean, Rudy Gobert, it's not just on-ball defense. It's the fact that he holds down the paint. Like there's like video clips, people run into paint. Oh, Rudy's there, pass out. Oh, Rudy's there, pass out. That's what they do because Rudy Gobert just holds down that paint so well. Nobody comes into his paint. He holds down a ground better than anybody else in the NBA. But with that being said, I would say the Defensive Player of the Year this year, it's got to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's a little bit of a hot take because voter bias, people are done with giving him the award. But when you really talk about guarding 1 through 5 and holding down anywhere on the floor, I think it's Giannis. I think he's, besides like Kawhi Leonard when he tries, he's the best defender in the NBA right now. And will be for a couple more years. But I think right now he has the second best defensive field goal percentage of the people on this list behind Ben Simmons, and that's by 0.2%. He's having people shoot 41% on him, and 30% of the shots that are taken on him are within 6 feet, and opponents shoot below 50% when they shoot on him within 6 feet of the basket, I think. And that's the exact same level as Rudy Gobert is right now. And I mean, opponents shoot 62% on Ben Simmons in the paint. So really guarding 1 through 5, there's nobody that does it better than Giannis Antetokounmpo. And he really locks up every team's best player when he does it. Ben Simmons, I mean, Kyrie Irving. He held Kyrie Irving to 37 points and then went on and bragged about it in an interview. You don't see Giannis doing that. Giannis will hold a guy that's supposed to go for 30 to 20 or 15 and not speak a word about it. And I think that's what really makes him the Defensive Player of the Year. I took the award away from Ben Simmons once he bragged about holding Kyrie to 37, but I think it's Giannis this year because of how he exemplifies the 1 through 5 defense.
Yeah, I think that I can see why people say Giannis. I don't think he's going to get it because of like just Yeah, he's been in so many awards recently, but I'm going to go with Gobert on this one because Gobert right now leads the league in defensive win shares. I mean, he was literally considered to be the MVP just solely off of his defensive presence. He's been like 12-12, and he was like in the top 10 for the MVP race just because of how good he is on defense. I mean, if you look at it, compared to Ben Simmons, he's got a better defensive rating, more defensive win shares, better opponent shooting differences, and then just point-wise, better on-off team impact. Like when Gobert is like not on the court, it's a lot more different than when Gobert is on the court. So if you just compare all those advanced defensive stats to Simmons, Gobert just bullies him in almost every statistical category. So I'm gonna have to say Gobert because of because of his importance to his team and just how well he can lock down the paint.
Okay, he doesn't. Here's my problem with that. Like, of course, Gobert holds down a spot better than any other defender in the NBA. He's not a good on-ball defender, but like he gets blown up is why I can't give him the award and why I have to give it to Giannis. Like the one all-star caliber or star caliber center that he's really truly locked up this season was Domantas Sabonis, who he held to 21 points over 2 games and 36% shooting over those 2 games. Like, Sabonis had a bad shooting night, but he still put up 21 points. I mean, like, Jokic went for 41 points on him and had 63-70 splits, and Embiid had 40 and 20 on him with 50-40 splits on him. I think, so when you look at players like dominant centers who go up against him, I think that's a big thing in the award. It's like when a star goes up against you, how do they play, like positional-wise? And, like, Giannis locks up his guy. No one else really does that. Like, of course, Gobert doesn't do that. Simmons doesn't do that. Look at Kyrie Irving. So I think when it comes down to who shuts down their man when everyone's watching, who leads their team to a great defense, who can hold down a spot when they need to, and who can guard the most 1 through 5, and that's easily Giannis Antetokounmpo to me.
You know, here's my take on it. I would give the award to Giannis in a lot of ways. However, I think, like Arjun said, he's won so many awards that it's going to go to Ben Simmons.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think go to Ben. I don't
like Rudy Gobert because I think the reason his stats look so good is because he's a good defender. He's not a great defender. Guys who are centers who are not fantastic, just star centers, they're scared to drive on him because they don't think he can match his defensive intensity with their offense. Stars are not afraid of Rudy Gobert. Star centers are not afraid of Rudy Gobert. I have not seen a star center outside of Sabonis, who's not really a star. He's an all-star, but I don't know that he's necessarily a star as such, get shut down by Rudy Gobert because they know they can get past him because their offense counteracts his defense well enough. And if you're outside of those guys, your offense isn't going to be good enough to get around somebody that size who just stands there. Mm-hmm. But if you're good enough center, like it's shown, they can just destroy him. And so I think Simmons being able to guard at all those positions, not having stars drop, like besides Kyrie, like you said, as a whole, not having stars drop 40 on him most games than when he plays a star, I think that Simmons as a whole is a better defender all around.
Than Giannis?
I think this season, I think they're pretty much on par. They're different. I think Giannis he doesn't guard the point guard as well, and he looks better because he doesn't have to do all the defending of guards and forwards. You've got Drew Holiday, who is a great defender. Obviously, the Sixers have Embiid. Embiid's a good defender, a great defender, don't get me wrong, but he pretty much only guards centers. And so you've got the Bucks, who outside of a center position, who Giannis could even guard, it's not like all the defensive intensity is put on Giannis.
Well, I mean, Giannis has Drew Holiday and then Chris Middleton. Drew Holiday, an all-defensive level guy. And, of course, like, Brook Lopez made an all-defensive team last year, am I right? Or am I wrong? I think he was all-defensive third team. But, like, Thibault...
Exactly. So he just shares the...
Yeah, no, but the same thing goes for Ben Simmons. I mean, Matisse Thybulle's holding opponents to 37% from the field this season, better than any Defensive Player of the Year award candidate. And then, like, Embiid, he does guard guards. Like, do you see that clip of what he did to Drew Holiday when Drew Holiday tried to get into the paint on him? Like, of course, it ended in an assist, but everything that Drew Holiday tried, Embiid stopped. I don't think Simmons is the best defender on his team. I mean,
no, but the thing is that Embiid guards. He's not. He. It's one highlight. He can guard. He can play defense out in the perimeter, but he's not going to do that because he needs to stay in the paint. That's his main.
Genuinely, I think Simmons is the best defender on his team. I think Thibault can pick up the load for him. Both these teams have great defenders surrounding those players. But generally, I think they both, I mean, anybody in this top four, not including Thibault, will deserve this award if they get it. They've all had great showings. It's really an even award give out this season compared to other seasons. But that will be it for us today. If you're still watching, you have not liked or subscribed, if you're still listening and you have not give us 5 stars on Spotify and shared this with a friend, shame on you. Go ahead and do that right now. And if you're watching, look at this dummy behind me. If you're listening, hear that it's Half Court Heave merch on a punching dummy behind me. And he's loving his merch, just like everyone else who I know who has bought merch has loved it. It's very comfortable. And if you're not getting clothing, you can get bags, you can get phone cases, you can even get a pillow or something to put on your wall like a Half Court Heave flag. It's all beautiful. Come on, join the army, subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you guys later.
Signing off.